The Mongol Jin War, 1211 to 1234, was a prolonged and transformative conflict between the Mongol Empire, led by Genghis Khan, and the Jin dynasty of northern China. This war played a critical role in the expansion of the Mongol Empire and marked the beginning of the Mongols' dominance over China. The conflict not only highlighted the military genius of Genghis Khan, but also set the stage for Mongol conquest across Asia.
Background. The Jin dynasty, 1115 to 1234, was founded by the Jurchens, a semi-nomadic people who had overthrown the northern Chinese Liao dynasty and established control over northern China, including the valuable territories of Beijing and the Yellow River Basin. The Jin were powerful and had long been rivals to the southern Song dynasty in southern China. By the early 13th century, the Jin dynasty faced external pressures, especially from the rising power of the Mongols, a nomadic group in the Central Asian steppes. Under the leadership of Genghis Khan, the Mongols had unified the various nomadic tribes and begun an era of aggressive expansion.
Causes of the war. Several factors contributed to the outbreak of war between the Mongols and the Jin. Diplomatic tensions. The Jin had long imposed a tributary relationship on the Mongol tribes, treating them as inferior. Genghis Khan's growing power and refusal to be subjugated under the Jin's control created a fundamental tension. Economic and military ambitions. Genghis Khan sought to expand his empire and conquer the rich agricultural lands of northern China, which were controlled by the Jin. The Jin's vast resources and wealth were tempting targets for the Mongol war machine. Internal weakness. The Jin dynasty was facing internal corruption, military weakness, and unrest, particularly among its subjects in northern China. These weaknesses made the Jin vulnerable to outside threats like the Mongols.
Phases of the war. Initial Mongol invasion, 1211 to 1215. In 1211, Genghis Khan launched his first major invasion of the Jin Empire. The Mongols, known for their fast-moving cavalry and tactical brilliance, quickly overwhelmed the Jin's forces in the countryside. The Mongols employed psychological warfare, terrorizing populations and forcing towns to surrender without much resistance. Genghis Khan used feigned retreats and mobility to outmaneuver the slower Jin armies. The Mongols also took advantage of dissension within the Jin court. In 1215, the Mongols captured Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, one of the Jin's major cities. This victory marked a significant turning point as it demonstrated the vulnerability of the Jin's heartland.
Mongol occupation and raids, 1215 to 1230. After the capture of Zhongdu, the Jin court moved their capital south to Kaifeng. Despite their weakened position, the Jin continued to resist Mongol advances. Over the next several years, the Mongols raided Jin territory and laid siege to various cities, but they did not immediately attempt to conquer the entire Jin state. Genghis Khan focused on consolidating power in Central Asia and elsewhere during this period, but the Mongol pressure on Jin never fully relented. The Mongols often cut off food supplies, which led to starvation in Jin cities. final Mongol campaigns and collapse of the Jin 1230 to 1234. After the death of Genghis Khan in 1227, his successor Ogday Khan continued the Mongol campaigns against the Jin. In 1230, Ogday launched a massive offensive against the Jin, determined to bring the war to a final conclusion. The Mongols were now better equipped to handle the fortified cities of the Jin, having developed siege techniques and artillery during their earlier campaigns. The Jin attempted a desperate defense, but they were outmatched by Mongol military tactics and strategy. The Mongols received aid from the Southern Song dynasty, which had been a long-time rival of the Jin, and saw an opportunity to reclaim territory in the north. In 1234, the Mongol forces, in alliance with the Southern Song, captured Kaifeng. The last Jin emperor, Emperor Aizong, fled and eventually committed suicide, marking the end of the Jin dynasty.
Mongol tactics and strategies. The Mongol Jin War showcased the Mongol military's adaptability and superiority in several ways. Mobility and cavalry. The Mongol cavalry was unmatched in speed and flexibility. Mongol warriors could cover vast distances quickly, launching surprise attacks and then disappearing before the Jin could organize an effective defense. Psychological warfare. The Mongols employed psychological tactics, including the use of terror, to weaken the resolve of their enemies. Cities that resisted were often destroyed, and their populations massacred, while those that surrendered were spared. Adaptation of siege tactics. Although the Mongols initially struggled with capturing fortified cities, they quickly adapted, using Chinese engineers and siege technology to break through city walls. This became crucial in their conquests of cities like Zhongdu and Kaifeng. Diplomacy and alliances. Genghis Khan was a master of diplomacy and often formed temporary alliances with enemies of his enemies. This skill was evident in the final stages of the war, when the Mongols allied with the Southern Song to finish off the Jin.
Consequences of the war. The fall of the Jin dynasty had several far-reaching consequences. Mongol expansion. The defeat of the Jin allowed the Mongols to extend their control over northern China, significantly expanding their empire. The Mongol conquest of China would continue until they defeated the Southern Song dynasty in 1279, establishing the Yuan dynasty under Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan.
Shift in power. The collapse of the Jin marked the end of the Jurchen domination in northern China. It also weakened the Song dynasty, which would soon face the Mongols' full might.
Destruction and depopulation. The Mongol Jin War, like many of the Mongol campaigns, was characterized by large-scale destruction and depopulation. Many cities in northern China were razed, and the population was severely reduced due to warfare, famine, and Mongol massacres.
Mongol influence on China. Over time, the Mongols assimilated aspects of Chinese administration, culture, and military tactics, which they would use to rule China after the complete conquest of the Southern Song. The establishment of the Yuan dynasty would integrate Mongol rule into Chinese history.
Legacy. The Mongol Jin War demonstrated the military brilliance of Genghis Khan and the effectiveness of Mongol warfare. It also underscored the vulnerability of even powerful and established empires like the Jin when faced with a dynamic and adaptable foe. The war marked the beginning of Mongol dominance in East Asia and laid the groundwork for one of the largest empires in world history. The Mongols' ability to incorporate different cultures, technologies, and strategies into their empire would make them a formidable force in subsequent campaigns across Eurasia. Thank you for watching the video, The Mongol Jin War, provided by History and Current Events. This is Sarah, Lily, Gina, Brian, and Tony have contributed so far as narrators. Thank you.